Welcome to the More Than Dis podcast, where we dive into conversations with good friends to bring us out of our stress, away from our to-dos, and out of our head. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. It's great to have you. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review to help others find out about the show. With that out of the way, let's jump right in.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, Mrs. Quigley, you haven't changed at all.
Oh, yes, I have. I've gotten a lot older.
No, you literally look the same as I remember you. Wow, holy
Oh, you're
moly.
so sweet. So sweet. I've aged about 15 years. I
Isn't it crazy how time
know.
flies?
I know it. And Mitchell's wanted me to tell you hi.
Really? Okay, good. Yeah, I know that I keep up with him and through social media, and I know
Yeah?
he lives in Belize still, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And you're a grandmother now?
Yes, in fact, his little boy is going to be 2 tomorrow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just excited to kind of catch up with you because, as you know, I've mentioned you in some of my videos before and kind
I
of the
know. You're so
impact.
sweet.
Yeah, I just kind of want to, from your perspective, and I mean now you're retired, right? Or are you still teaching?
No, I'm not still teaching. No.
Okay. How has that been, and how was it for you, even in deciding to be a teacher? Was it always something that you wanted to be, or yeah? I just want to hear about you, learn learn more about you,
My
honestly.
story, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. No, teaching wasn't something I always wanted to do. When I was in school, because my parents had moved away from Buell, Idaho, and when I was like 2 or 3 and took me to California, I had a whole different education up through age 16. And I was really into the Spanish language. So I wanted to be an interpreter, actually. But when I moved to Buell at 16, I was so far advanced in Spanish from what they offered in high school that I couldn't continue. And at that point in time, dual credit, like with colleges, weren't available to me. Um, so I lost my Spanish. So it was interesting that I gravitated towards English as a second language as my major.
That makes a lot of sense. And my memory might be a little shot at this point, but I do remember you speaking Spanish. I mean I right, like, it wasn't like all the way fluent for you, but I remember that you knew how to communicate well with us, right? In the ESL class.
Well, I tried, and between our laughter when I would make a mistake and you guys correcting me, I picked it up, a little bit
Mhm.
easier because I had that background as a student.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I remember once, and like speaking about Mitch, I remember once. I don't think we've actually have we met in person. I don't think your son and I have actually. We might have
No,
met once or twice, but we haven't actually met, right, or had a conversation. But it's funny because I remember at one point in class, I can't remember the exact thing, but I think we were complaining about the amount of homework. Like the class was just complaining, and you used Mitch as an example. And because I remember at that point he might have been in high school or even starting college as a freshman, and you mentioned to us, you were like, "Oh, this is nothing." You were like, "My son, he goes to class for a couple hours, but then has 4 hours of homework to do." Just from that every hour. And that even stuck with me because when I got to college, I kind of had that framework of like, oh, for every hour that I'm in class, I'm gonna expecting 4 hours to have of homework. So
yeah, yeah, he was a freshman in college when we were talking about that, right?
how is retirement treating you, or and how's being a grandma?
I'll start with the retirement piece. After I quit Buell, I didn't teach for quite a while. And then my husband and I, actually moved to Twin Falls and sold our home in Buell and kind of downsized because Mitchell and Brandon were both gone. And I did work one more year in Kimberly after I moved to Twin. So I haven't worked now for about 4 years. And it's really hard. I miss it. but I have like an adopted grandson who's in 7th grade, and I get to work with him on his schoolwork and participate in his school activities and stuff. So that's nice.
I
For my
bet.
real grandson, Grayson in Belize, that is like he's got my heart. You know, he had my heart from day one, and I was Mitchell's wife is Belizean, and her mom lives in Mississippi, and she wasn't able to travel. I was happily there when he was born, so I got to be with him the first month or two of his life. But I haven't seen him now since February because Belize is shut down because of the COVID thing.
That's what I was gonna
So,
ask. Yeah.
yeah, so I miss him terribly. And he's, babies change, as you
Yeah.
probably see from kids that you see around and about. They
Yeah.
change so fast.
I mean,
So,
I have two nephews. And you're right. There so one of them just turned 7, and then the other one's about to turn 1 here in December actually. So yeah, I mean they do change, like the newborn is already like crawling all over the place, and
I know
it's
it's amazing, huh?
yeah, yeah. It definitely adds, and I know that it's different. For example, for my parents and yourself being grandparents, like, but even for me, it's crazy just to see how fast they develop, or how they kind of taking a second to see how they absorb the world as they grow. And it's just like a very cool thing for me to watch and to be able to be part of. So I
And you
can
have
only
to be really
imagine.
careful too, because they're absorbing everything you do, and they want to mimic everything you do and say and be. And so as an uncle, because Mitchell's finding this out as a dad, but as an uncle, you have to be real careful when you're around them because they're like a sponge.
Yeah, no, they really. Oh man, Mrs. Quigley, if you would meet my older nephew, it's kind of like that. He, even when he was little, he always wanted to be kind of, if we were at the table having dinner or something, he would want to be part of the conversation, and he still is that way. And you're totally right. Sometimes we have to remember that he is still very young, and to kind of remember what we say or how we say things, and
Curve it
it's
back a little bit,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's definitely like a just like a reminder, like a zap in your brain. I'm like, oh, I was about to say something, but now I probably shouldn't because my nephew's here, and just remembering that. But yeah, what else have you been up to other than after retirement and traveling to Belize?
Well, I took up my new hobby is quilting.
Oh, nice.
And so I took that up in 2007. So I've been doing that as a hobby, and I really like that, especially in the wintertime, because I can stay inside and just sew away to my heart's content. Um, I also kayak.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so Keith and I, Mr. Quigley and I, we kayak a lot, and we've done um, most of the river from Hagerman to Hanson. We've kayaked
Really?
that, but my favorite trip was one weekend. We took a weekend and we put our kayaks on the car, and we went and we did the mountain lakes. So we did Redfish, Alturas, Stanley, and we just went up there for the weekend and just kayaked around the lakes. That was really fun.
Whoa. See, I'm barely getting into the outdoorsiness
Are ya?
of everything. Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult for me, and it's a love-hate relationship for me, but
Right.
it's something that once you're there, like I've been camping a few times and fishing with some buddies from high school, and once you're there in the outdoors, it's like a whole different thing. Like it really does make you appreciate a little bit more, and
It
just
does.
being out there, right? Like, but as far as kayaking, it's something that I want to try, but I'm very like cautious myself, so I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm gonna survive it. As much as I want to try it, I want to make sure that I'm okay, or like take the right precautions before I do
Yeah, and
anything.
we don't do whitewater.
Oh,
We
that's
we
like
get
the
it we get
bumpy
in a
one.
little bit of whitewater and we think we're doing class 5, and it's like barely a ripple.
Yeah,
So our kayaks, we started kayaking before kayak became in vogue. Everybody wants to kayak now.
right.
So our kayaks are like heavy, and they're like boats, and they're open. So you
Right.
don't have that
Flexibility with
single
the
skin around you. Yeah. So we just have a fun time at it. I think if you had a kayak like that was real open, and
yeah.
you'd be able to get out if you fell over.
Yeah, I mean, I
I've never
should.
tipped mine over, so
I mean, I should probably learn how to swim first, I think, in that
just wear your
regard,
life jacket,
right?
keep your head up and your feet in front of you, and you'll be
Just,
fine.
oh my goodness, Mrs. Quigley. What do you think has been, and going back to your teaching a little bit, what was the most rewarding thing for you as a teacher? And yeah, while you were there working, because I bet it was stressful. I can only imagine.
Not like it is right now, though. I can't imagine teaching right now. It would
Right,
be,
all
yeah,
online. Yeah,
oh yeah, it'd be crazy. I just liked it when I saw the spark in the eye of the student and said, I get it now,
yeah,
I loved seeing that. But when I was working with English as a second language and you guys, I loved meeting your parents and I loved, them feeling comfortable coming into my classroom because I felt like so many of the Hispanics or the dual language citizens that were in our school weren't comfortable coming in. They were a little
right.
bit afraid.
Yeah,
So like when your mom and dad would come in and sit down with us, I loved that camaraderie between those parents. I loved making them feel welcome and say, you know what, this is your school too.
yeah. It honestly makes a big difference, and obviously I can't speak for their experience, but it really does make a huge difference just because of the language barrier alone. I mean, I feel like that's the biggest obstacle, right? So to have somebody like you who's naturally so warm and welcoming, and plus being able to communicate at least somewhat with them, it makes a big difference.
I
So
can ask them if they want a drink of water. That was
yeah.
about it.
They're like, oh no, yeah. No, it's funny because I remember, and we've gone without seeing each other for years now, right? Like
Oh yeah, decades.
I graduated, and then I came to BSU, and then I only ever heard, I think my parents once or twice bumped into you, and they would tell me, like, I think you guys were grocery shopping or something, and you guys bumped into each other a couple of times. It wasn't until I think we added each other on Facebook, right?
And then you did that one podcast, and I thought, my gosh, he mentioned me in his podcast. Of all the teachers you've had, I'm the one you mentioned.
No, it's great. Oh, the YouTube video.
Yeah.
I mean, you really did make a huge impact. And like for example, like even I was telling my roommates this because I've been so excited for this conversation with you, just because a lot of memories keep coming back to me of just again, like you said, you were always the person, at least for me, and I don't know, obviously with other students, but I remember you would like give me books to read that were just a little bit tougher, but you kind of pushed me along the way, and you always encouraged me to do, I don't know if they do that now, but the AR tests where you had to like read a book and then go take a quiz and then you'd get points, and then eventually
No, not so much. Not so much. Yeah.
not anymore, right? But I remember that you would win prizes and you like sit to be able to sit at your desk. So I remember like for a day, like I was sitting at your desk at one point, or like stuff like that, but it kept me engaged. And then another thing, it was like I was telling my roommate, I was like, I wanted to be a teacher. That was the very first thing that I wanted to be. But it's because kind of I think you pushed me and like you opened my horizon into that, and like writing. At one point, I started like working on a book, I remember, and then you showed me how to set it up in Word. Like all of these things, like going Easter egg hunting with you and your family. I think it was Mr. Quigley, right? And then my
Yeah.
next door neighbor. Like all of these things just kept rushing like into my head, and I'm like, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be the same person if I hadn't had you as a teacher. I don't think you're
Oh,
definitely a
that's
very
that's that's an amazing compliment, because that was my goal really as a teacher, is to touch students' lives like that, and
yeah,
there were a couple other kids that we did that, like, we got one of them into baseball and we took him to the games and made sure he got to practice and everything. So for you to remember the Easter egg hunts and the smiling on the swing and then
yeah,
sitting at my school desk, and I had this massive desk, if
yeah.
you remember, it was
Yeah,
huge.
yeah. I
So
think that's what made it cool. I think that's what made it cool because you just got to sit in that space nice.
And you got my rolling chair.
Yeah.
You got
Oh, that was the thing, Mrs. Quigley, the rolling chair, and that was where it, like you needed to be, you know. I even remember this, Mrs. Quigley. I think was it, and I get it wrong because I started. I went into your class. Was it third through fifth
third
or
grade.
third through fifth, right? So for those couple of years, and then I remember when, because at our school, once you hit fifth grade, then you switched over to middle school, right? So
Right.
I remember that was very tough for me, um, and I remember this specifically. You went to my first hour class as a sixth grader, which was PE of all things. So
Oh God.
I was like nervous about it being PE, and then on top of that, you know, just being in a completely different environment. But you went there and you told me, you were like, I think you saw that I was upset or something. And you said to me, you were like don't be upset or don't be sad because you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I remember that so clearly, and thinking about it, and oh, Mrs. Quigley, no, you're gonna make me. I told my roommate, I was like, I'm probably gonna cry at some point. um, but no, like even thinking about that now, like just being where I'm supposed to be, like that's such uh, a simple thing to say, but something so true, right? Like even though I didn't necessarily want to move forward, like I needed to, and you kind of gave me that push, because part of me was like, I felt like I was leaving something behind. And of course, like being in your class, I remember even, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much,
No,
but
you're good.
but even like when like I think it was like fourth or fifth grade that you and I don't know if it's just kind of how it works, but little by little I started being less and less in your class because
Yes.
because of that reading, right? So like I don't know, I just got a better hold of the language. So little by little, I would be like, "What do you mean I'm only gonna be here for so and so long?" And so yeah, even that was a whole thing because yeah, I don't
But
know.
you were taking those baby steps, and look where you're at now. All of those baby steps have led up to this fantastic human being that you are.
Thank you,
You
Mrs.
know.
Quigley. Thank you. I mean I tried. There's still a lot of work, but
Oh,
there's
there
still a
is in
lot.
all of us.
There's still a lot of
I'm
work to be done,
63 and I
but
still have tons of work to do.
I can't believe that you. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll be able to. I like thank you enough. I wanted to have you on here because of that, and I don't know if I don't think I've mentioned this to you when I invited you, but I I I'm going to have this be kind of my first episode as far as having a guest, because I went through my head and I was like, like who do I want to be like my very first guest? Um, and I was like, it has to be Mrs. Quigley. Like she has to like start things off because I feel like that's kind of where I guess into it's kind of sound cheesy, but kind of like my journey towards independence kind of began. It kind of just like obviously with my parents at first, you know, just sending me over, but I feel like you really, as far as like my academic work and kind of giving me that confidence that I needed, I feel like you were pivotal in kind of me getting to where I am today.
That just touches my heart because I think as a teacher, you want that for all of your students. You want to be able to reach out to them and say, look, I'm going to push you harder than you think you want to go, but
Hmm.
that's a baby step that you need to do. And then tomorrow I'm going to push you even farther.
Right.
And next year I'm going to push you even harder. You know, it's like that transfer to PE. I remember that day walking into that gym, and here's this huge gym and all of these kids running it around, and you've got to think about dressing down and finding your locker and all of that. And your eyes were just huge. It was like, I don't want to be here.
It was a scary thing, and
Yeah.
a big part of it, and I mentioned it, but a big part of it was just because of my disability. I just there it was just like a whole different world, and you know, yeah. So I mean, again, I can't thank you enough for just giving me that courage, um, and I don't know if like I was actually thinking about this because it's interesting because Mr. Qualls, who was my PE
Yes.
teacher, he actually I consider a very important part because he kind of continued to give me that confidence and even taught me like different ways to kind of carry out the PE exercises and stuff like that, obviously with my circumstance. So yeah, I lost touch with him. I'm sure he's still around. I hope he's doing well, but I'm definitely gonna try to get him on here as well because yeah, I mean, it's in thinking about like having you on here and then just kind of how life is right now. So my one of my roommates and some of my friends are like teachers now, right? So
Wow.
yeah, so just thinking about that, and I've talked to my roommate about this, and obviously they've kind of heard about your story and how much impact you've had. I was like, that's the kind of teachers that you need because you like exactly like you were saying, you need somebody to push you, but also to be there for you in a sense, or to have that level of comfort that if you're not feeling well or if you're not like grasping something that you're comfortable enough to go up and tell them. So yeah, it's crazy how life kind of just does a full circle. But
Yeah, it is. I have a favorite saying I like to say when because in the last few years I've worked with people in recovery from alcohol, drug abuse, or sexual abuse, or something like that. And I have a favorite saying. I said, I'm here to listen and I'm here to help, but you have to do the hard work.
yeah,
I will fill in the bottom of the hole that you have dug for yourself, but you have to climb out of it yourself, but I will help fill
oh,
it in.
I
So it's kind
love
of the
that.
same way with students. You have to fill in those gaps that they have, like for you in language barrier. You have
Yeah.
to help fill in that gap, but I'm here to help you. I'm here to catch you if you fall. I'm here to, say it's going to be okay. I'm here to pick you up, you know, but it's your work. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
So all of it is on your shoulders, and you've done a fantastic job of that.
Thank you, Mrs. Quigley. No, I mean, yeah, you're totally right. And honestly, you really haven't changed. Like your demeanor, and I don't mean just like physically, obviously, but your demeanor is just like as warm as I remember. Yeah, yeah, I don't even know what to say. I'm just so grateful and so appreciative for you. And all the work that you continue to do, obviously, for the people that you're helping now, I can only imagine the impact that you're having on their life. Well, thank you so much for again agreeing to be in the podcast, Miss Quigley. It's been a blast getting to catch up with you. And in just wrapping up, so I'm going to ask all my guests three questions. So the first one being, what makes a true friendship?
Okay, I think that listening is a bigger part of friendship, and especially in today's world where everything seems to be about me, me, me. What can I get? What can I do? I want you to listen to me. I want you to have empathy for me. We don't always listen to what the other person is saying and really understand that. So I think it's really important to not push your ideas on somebody. It's okay to agree to disagree, but we need to listen and understand the other person's views.
Who is one person that has impacted your life in a positive way and how?
Okay, and I can't come up with one person, but I would say my family has impacted me, starting with my grandmother. She was an amazing person. She had a very strong work ethic. She was widowed at when I was about 3 years old, and she lived the whole rest of her life as a widow. But she would work and work and work. She drove school bus. She worked in a meat packing plant. She cooked as a fry cook downtown at one of the restaurants. And then as when I went to college at age 35, she took care of my kids while I was in school. And then my dad had that same work ethic that he got from his mom. But the most important thing about my dad is he taught us to have fun and to play, and I think in today's world, so many parents are so focused on their jobs and trying to maintain a living that they forget to teach their kids how to have fun and play. And then finally, my kids, because my kids are so important to me, even down to my grandchild. But as they were growing and stuff, I learned different things about myself, how to improve myself, how to be a better mom, how to be more loving towards them. So I would just have to say my family was the most important to me.
Last question. What is one piece of advice you would give to the youngest member of your family?
Again, to not stop your education. Just education is so important in my mind, as you know, from a school teacher standpoint. And education is never wasted. I always told my kids, because neither one of them are working in their college degree, but I told Mr. Quigley and I both have said, education's never wasted. So always try to improve yourself, and don't feel like you're wasting it just because you're not doing what your degree says. Doesn't mean you've wasted your education.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like with college especially, right? I think it overall just helps you become a well-rounded person, whether or not you end up working like you said in your degree field. I feel like the people skills that you get in college kind of in a way transcend whatever kind of major or field that you decide to go into. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
And everything you've learned makes you who you are today. And there's always improvement to have. Like I said, I didn't go to college till I was 35. So,
Oh wow.
To end up with a master's degree after that is amazing to me, that someone with kids and a family could get that far. So
That's a
don't
huge,
waste, always trying to learn.
Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment, Mrs. Quigley. Even yeah, like you said, with kids and family, and it's yeah. No, I admire you. Well, that was all I had planned as far as the question portion of the episode or the conversation, Mrs. Quigley. Anything else you want to add, kind of from what we've talked about, or just anything else in general?
No, I'm just so proud of you, Miguel, from when that scared little boy, back in elementary school to this fantastic young man that's doing fantastic things. So proud of your accomplishments. Keep doing them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was amazing to talk with you again. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day, weekend. Yeah, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Okay, great. You too. Thanks,
All right.
Miguel.
All right. Bye, Mrs. Quigley.
You've been listening to the More Than Dis podcast. Before you go, don't forget to give us a quick rating and review, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit downwithdis.com to stay up to date with the latest information about the show. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we'll catch you on the next one.